Hey, I'm Will Devokees, director of Macabre Medicine, and I'm here with
Ben Bostaph. I play Haywood West.
And I'm Josh Lynch. I play Sam Eagleton.
And you are listening to the Movie Raid podcast. Can I have my money now?
It's time for the Movie Raid. Tonight's victim is filmmakers Will Devokees, Ben, and Josh. That we are talking about behind the scenes tell-all tale with Macabre Medicine. Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
I like how I got my last name mentioned, but you guys didn't.
That's okay.
That's just fine.
That's all right. Par for the course.
What's going on, Mike?
Macabre Medicine is currently almost in the final stages of being released. This is a combination between comedy as well as horror, and you guys have been seasoned since then. I mean, you were kids filmmaking this, and now is the time to reminisce what once was and what will be. We're going to start with, as far as the filming locations, like, were there many areas to film this? Or was it purely local? Did you have to go in different states? Like, it's like filming the college scene, the school scene, and all the other scenes, like, or the murder scenes.
Yeah, so, I don't know.
It was all local, right, Will?
Yeah,
It was all local.
I go to the Delaware Film Office, yeah. We didn't get our check, by the way. No, we shot this over, 3 different states? Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. It was pretty much wherever we could shoot. It's a lot of guerrilla filmmaking, and Haywood's house is my house. But that also changed to being whatever house we were living in at the time.
It was like, a lot of people's house.
Yeah. It was like, Haywood's got the craziest, biggest mansion that, the trailer park could afford. But what do you guys remember about the locations?
I remember there being a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like you said, we shot in your house, and then we also shot in the first house we lived in Pennsylvania, and then also the second house, and those all came together to be one, which is all Haywood's house. He has the weirdest decor ever.
That was very eclectic.
And then
you get pictures of me in your house. Remember?
Yes.
You brought that up. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, there's just like pictures of random people in Haywood's house. You know how it goes. We pretty much just shot wherever we could. I don't think we had permits for anything, but
Of course we did.
Yeah.
We shot in Pennsylvania, Maryland.
Will's grandmom worked hard on this.
That's true.
She made them in the Microsoft Word.
Put them in the back there.
I made mine in MS Paint. But yeah, the only place I didn't shoot was Maryland. I shot in Pennsylvania and Delaware, and then I guess these other guys, they also shot in Maryland some, but I wasn't there for that.
Yeah, that was... I think I shot in all 3. Because we shot in Pittsburgh when you lived there, Will. I did a lot of stuff in Delaware, obviously. That's the majority of it. And then we did... I went on at least one shoot to Towson, Maryland.
Yeah.
Up around there. That was a cold night. That was a really cold night.
Yeah, but you didn't get any blood on you, did you?
When didn't I? All the time. Ruined a lot of good pairs of shorts that way.
And a jacket, too.
Yeah, I did. That was fun.
And when it comes to preparing the script, preparing to when to shoot, as well as the final shooting schedule, how long did it actually take all 3 of those to put together or combined? I mean, how long for like even the script itself? Did you have original pages as well?
Guys, you're treating this like it was an actual movie. No, so it from the original inception of the movie to actually shooting and preparing, it was pretty much whenever we all had free time to shoot it. It was like, weekends, after school, because we were still in high school when we were shooting it, and then college. And, when me and Ben moved away for college, it was a lot harder to shoot with Josh and Adam because they were in Delaware and we were 7 hours away in Pittsburgh. So it was very tough. And I'm sure after, I don't know how they feel, but after like year 3, they kind of got tired of me coaxing them to come out and make the movie. You know, I'd be like, hey, we're having a party. Then they'd show up and I'd have like a bucket of blood in the camera and be like, hey, nah, just kidding, we're making a movie. And they'd be like, F you. And then we'd play GoldenEye all night. So, you know, I started working on the script. I found a file, like this is the story. I found a file dated back like March 2006. And it was a Word document with just ideas for Macabre Medicine. And all those ideas were kind of used in a script that we kind of started shooting with and then threw out. There was a point where, and I'm glad this happened, if we had shot that movie, we would have been canceled, or I would have been canceled before being canceled was a thing. It was a very dark, very unforgiving film, and it was very, very violent. And we did some things that were in that script that shouldn't have been, well, done. You know, people would have looked at it and been like, this guy's crazy. So we kind of tossed the script out after shooting 30% of the movie, and we kind of turned it into a comedy. Now, the original idea was it was going to be a serious horror film that was to be an exploitation, like, Grindhouse movie. And the only jokes and gags were done with, like, the editing and the continuity errors. Those were the only kind of gags we were going to do. After we threw the script out, I was up all night like, well, fuck it, let's just make it a comedy at this point. And that's what we did. We made it like this little comedy, and for what it's worth, I think it's a fun little movie, you know? What are your guys' thoughts on the inception of Macabre Medicine?
Well, like Will said, like originally we had a script. I think you might have approached me with it when we were still in high school. I graduated the year before you, so I don't remember if I was still in high school or not.
Yeah, you were.
Okay. And we started talking about it, and I just remember, like, the original script, I liked it, but there were certain parts where I was like, Will, I can't do that. My parents are going to see this, you know. So, yeah, like he said, it was a little too much at parts, but I kind of like the fact that at first I was, you know, while we were filming and we threw the script out, I was kind of frustrated with it because we didn't have a script anymore and we're kind of improvising. But now, as like after I've seen the finished thing, I'm actually very happy about the fact that we got to improvise so much of it because I think the movie is hilarious. I, you know, almost cried laughing at it the first time I saw the completed movie.
Well, we did have a script. You know, remember, I was writing late at night. Like, so what would happen is we would shoot, and then I'd go home and kind of digitize the footage, do a rough edit, and then sit down and be like, okay, we shot 30% of this movie that's kind of serious and very moody. Like, we actually lit it and had smoke machines for atmosphere, and we actually tried to make it creepy. And then I kind of had to sit back and be like, well, now that we throw the script out, you know, how do we make this something different? So I would go home and just start writing kind of comedy bits into the script to make it more lively and more fun, because it was really pitch black humor, you know, and I would say very sleazy. I don't know about you, but I would kind of compare the script to, like, you know, like Friday the 13th Part 5 with like, you know, how kind of pitch black humor that was actually in it, and how kind of dark it got at times, you know, with the violence. But we would actually, I would sit down and write pieces, and then we would go film them, and then I'd come back and try to plug it in and be like, okay, what can I do to make this make sense? So I would write a bunch of scenes, and we would film them, and that's what kind of bloated the film out. And it was funny because somebody asked me recently, like, well, why didn't you just take the script you had and just get rid of the bad parts? I'm like, that's genius. But as an amateur filmmaker, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I was like, oh, well, this is not going to work. I'm throwing this out the window. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you know, I was along for the ride, and the script changed often, and
frequent.
It was both. I mean, any other words you can use to describe it, they're all going to pretty much be pulled from the same thesaurus entry. But the interesting thing too was just how the process evolved. We started when we were in high school, and then at that point in our lives, we don't really have a whole lot going on in our lives besides school, And the process went on so long that by the time we were done, we all had jobs and we're doing, kind of our adult stuff as well, like real world, kind of like, day to day, which also made it challenging. And the process kind of melded as that change in our lives became apparent. So a lot of it then became based on availability or, who are we going to happen to be able to get together on X weekend, whatever. But it was a very fluid experience, and it definitely evolved over the course of shooting.
And that's honestly why it kind of took a long time, a couple years, because it was like people were moving, and then we had to live our lives, and then the original idea, and Josh and Ben, you might remember this, it was supposed to be just a short film.
Yeah.
Just for a STEM project, and then it kind of grew into something bigger.
Now, there's very few characters involved within this film. As far as concepts go, were these the original concepts, like for Haywood? And did you, Ben and Josh, did you guys actually first became agreeable to this, or were you a little resilient as far as where these characters might be, even though this is like comedy, horror, or might end up being straight horror later on? And then where does the character go? And did you have any thoughts about should I even do this?
Mind if I answer first?
Yeah, go for it.
You were giving me, at least, way too much credit for how seriously I was taking my acting career at that stage in my life. I knew that Will was working on something, and I told him I would help. That was about all of the thought process put into me, being involved with it. So I just sort of went with the flow. I didn't, there were a couple things over time, because, and perspectives change and thoughts change and things like that. But I was conflicted about a couple of different things in the script just because I knew it would have probably lent well to the storyline, but I was very self-conscious about perspectives down the road of people that are in my family or whoever. It's kind of what Ben was saying, would see it. Over time, that kind of exited my mind to a large extent. But you're young, and it's just having that thought in your mind down the road that, well, it is for a movie, but it was a very conflicting thing just from a personal kind of philosophical perspective. But that was the most thought I ever put into it. I was just, like I said, along for the ride.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a similar experience. I've never wanted to act or anything like that. It was more so just something fun to do with my friend kind of thing, when he approached me with it. I do remember kind of similar thing. I just, had some reservations about the script, mostly because you have to remember we were basically still kids when we started making this.
Yeah.
So we had to worry about our parents and other family members seeing it and stuff like that, and what they would think of it, and whether or not, I'd be confined to the house forever. And then I also just kind of remember, I think the only other reservation I had was, I think when Will approached me with the character, he said something along the lines of, yeah, so I wrote this character, he's kind of like this pathetic loser character with no friends, so I thought of you first. And I was like, oh, gee, thanks, Will.
Sorry.
But, yeah, no.
What a pitch. What a pitch, man.
He really knows how to get people on board. And I was like, that's true, but hey. But no, he, at that point, for years throughout high school, this was kind of just what we did on the weekends for fun, was make little gory horror films and stuff. So to me, it was just hanging out with my friend. It wasn't really I'm going to be an actor in a movie or anything like that. Because I never really had any ambitions of being an actor, and really still don't. I just want to make stuff with Will, usually, or my friends or whatever.
Yeah, that made it fun, too, though. Most definitely.
Now, well, you yourself are also in the movie as a character, not just directing a portion of it, but, did you have any concepts for your own character as well as Haywood, what led to actually insert these kind of characters within this movie, despite being kids and just making a movie, having fun? What was the actual thought process between these?
I was not originally supposed to be in the movie. Remember, Jeff Hefner was supposed to be Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, and it was his name wasn't Jeff originally. It was something else. I think it was Chris, and
Sorry, inside joke there. That's
dude, you just interrupted me.
no. I'm just saying, it's like I make it Jeff Hefner, and what do I call him?
Chris.
Chris. That's original because his brother's name is Chris.
He has a twin brother named Chris, and they worked on the movie.
They did.
A little bit. But Jeff got busy with his job. He was working like as a manager, I think at a McDonald's, and he couldn't do it. So it was like that final hour, and I was like, well, I guess I'll do it. I want to act. So I kind of rewrote the character a little bit, and then we started filming, and then that character just evolved more into, because the original character of Jeff or Chris he was just using Haywood to kind of like get help with homework and to study with, and and it eventually evolved into this guy being a nice guy and like actually caring for this person who's getting bullied. The problem is we didn't really shoot any of Haywood getting bullied other than by Ryan Phillips. So you have these scenes of a teacher pretty much just bullying the student, and that's it. So that's where I kind of messed up, because the whole purpose of this movie was this kid is getting bullied, and he's like, well, I'm going to take out my frustrations and maybe learn something on him too. He's like wants to learn anatomy. And then, like, I remember we got done shooting.
Really a coming-of-age story.
Yeah. It's like Meatballs 2.
Sorry, Will.
No, it's okay. It's funny. But Haywood, the character of Haywood was always to be like this sinister guy who, he does want friendship, but he also wants to study anatomy really bad. He wants to be a doctor, to the point that he thinks in his head that he's a doctor. And I always like this idea of him like killing somebody, stealing their identity, and then trying to pass himself off as that character, of Haywood. And I based the character off of course, the main inspiration was Herbert West, but the look of Haywood West was based off of Dr. Frankenstein from Day of the Dead. Because halfway through the movie, Haywood wasn't always covered in blood when we first started shooting. It was only when he killed somebody, and then he would clean, because he's a smart killer, he would clean his jacket off. It's then when I saw Day of the Dead, I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if this guy was just covered in blood all the time and walking around the school and nobody really cares or notices? So when it kind of became a comedy, I'm like, that's what we're going to do. And I think it was kind of effective, because a lot of people, even before the movie came out, that knew about it were like, hey, that's kind of iconic, just having this guy in a lab coat just slathered in blood. And I think we had, 3 lab coats, Ben?
Something like that.
You're wearing one that...
This one I don't think I've ever actually worn before. It's like a short one, and I can't even button it. So.
I think it's shrunk.
That much?
That would be...
Yeah. I put it on a hot spin dry.
Ripley's, believe it or not.
Yeah.
How much this shrunk.
Or maybe you just grew.
Yeah, I grew.
That's the one you got for the promo, right? Because it's got all our signatures on it.
Yeah.
I think that was just the only one we had left.
That's possible, too.
I think somebody stole one, and I think we threw one away because you could crack it in half with all the blood that was on it.
Oh, my God.
But I always wanted Haywood to kind of have this doctor appearance, and, he can't...
Success.
That's what it's 80s all over again. And I wanted it, like, he didn't have the tools necessary, so he was using, like, pumpkin carving kits and, like, weird things that he found to perform these backyard surgeries.
Squeaky sharks.
Yeah. Real stick-to-itiveness there.
Yeah, no.
It's a little elbow grease. Just make it happen. Just get it done.
And this wasn't really going to be...
It
wasn't going to be a narrative movie. It was going to be a how-to. We wanted to actually show you how you can perform a heart surgery with a pumpkin carving kit from the 90s. No, I'm kidding. But no, it was... I don't know if you... Did he ask this question? Was it hard for me directing? Did you mention that in acting?
No, but can it be in the combination of the two?
No, it fit like a glove. I think it worked perfectly. I think I'm an amazing director, an amazing actor, and everybody should hire me. No, I'm kidding. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard directing and acting and doing special effects, makeup, and writing and producing and editing and craft service.
I agree. It was hard with Will editing and directing and everything. Very hard for us with him directing.
Anytime you have a situation like this and you got multiple things being done by one person, it really makes it challenging. And it can be nice.
It's our next movie.
Very nice.
The sheep squatch.
No, I mean it's true. It's like when you're working on a small budget kind of film project, you inevitably have many people wearing multiple hats, and that can make it really hard sometimes, especially if you're in the middle of a really critical scene and the person whose ultimate opinion matters of how something looks has to keep stopping, going, taking a look. No, I don't like that. Move the camera here. Go back. And they're trying to give the people that are filling in those roles, like a camera op, their vision of what they need to do differently to be able to achieve the result. It can take longer because of that. That's just one example.
I know that I'm credited as the director on this movie, but I have to say it was a combination of all of us working together because, when I was in front of the camera, Ben was behind it or Josh was behind it, and they very much helped steer the ship. And the good thing about working with people that are your friends and that you've worked with for a while is that they kind of know your psyche and what you are after and what you want. And I was very particular. But I think we did get the shots that I needed, and I couldn't have asked for a better group, because honestly, it was very stressful, especially when you're putting your own money up. And it's like you're trying to do everything behind the scenes. And, I didn't want anybody else to really have to worry about too much. So, it was hard. And, look, when you're making a low-budget movie, you don't have a budget or money, that makes everything like 10 times more difficult, And then on top of that, you don't have permits, you don't have the greatest gear, so.
But as far as the financial aspect of that, like, how much invested could be actually put into the production of that, despite like a few bucks here and there? Like, did you actually had to sacrifice one thing for another, or did you have to substitute for another thing constantly while doing this, or did Josh and Ben also had to contribute at the same time, and you all had to basically find whatever piggy bank you could break open and just split the dollar, whichever may be?
Did Josh and Adam contribute? Yes, they did. Just them driving to Pittsburgh or driving to my house contributed, because that was money and gas that I didn't have to worry about. Josh gave me tapes on occasion. Ben would buy food, on occasion. We all kind of pitched in where we could, because I think they noticed I was getting really stressed because I was just, I pulled money out of a savings account to make this movie, and then the rest of the money was out of pocket, And let me tell you, a 3-pack of tapes back then was like, what, $50?
Yeah, it was expensive.
Pretty expensive.
Yeah.
And I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to keep taping over tapes. And thank God I didn't, because I'm finding tapes that I didn't even digitize.
Yeah.
Of Macabre Medicine. So it was kind of interesting. But, no, everybody kind of put in a little bit of money and a little bit of skin and sweat equity, mostly. You guys want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember contributing anything, as far as, actual money goes. Like Will says, I might have bought food a few times, but I was pretty broke throughout the whole process. I was in college, and I wasn't consistently working. I was mostly taking freelance gigs with, just various, video production gigs. So I only had money here and there, and when I had, pretty much had to go to, rent and stuff like that. I would say that Will probably contributed the most as far as, out-of-pocket actual cash goes. And then, they were saying, Josh and Adam had to travel and stuff like that. Thankfully, I never had to do any of that because I didn't have the funds to do so. I mostly contributed just a lot of time and being soaked in blood and just Will's abuse constantly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I actually think the inverse. Will didn't contribute anything to any of this production. It was all, no. It was, the lion's share is definitely Will, and it was his project. I think the extent of what we kicked in is exactly what he said, just our willingness to travel when we had to. We paid our own way. We didn't expect him, even though he offered many times to pay for gas and things like that. But we were all scrappy at that point in our lives, So it was a small contribution. Most of what we put in was our time, as often and as frequently as we could. But it, over time, Will probably sunk quite a considerable amount of personal money into it, because we're talking about years, we're talking about a lot of people that were involved, a lot of different logistics there. It was definitely a group effort, but the lion's share is definitely in Will's court on that one.
And I didn't really want... This was my project, so I took responsibility for the financial aspect of it. You know, look, I went around and tried to raise money for it. And
yeah, anytime he'd pass the tithe plate my way, I'd be like, all right, 5 spot there.
Josh was reaching into it.
Yeah, well, I tried. I was like the Sticky Bandits. I had that glove, just stick that in there, see what I could get out. Nothing ever came out, though.
You're trying to get blood from a stone. I remember when I was first trying to make this movie, there's newspaper articles of me like saying, hey, I'm trying to raise money for this project. We're trying to buy, the proper camera gear. And, a lot of the money was going towards special effects makeup, which was really expensive back then. Even gear back then was expensive. To get like a set of lights and, a microphone and a decent camcorder to, we were using really antiquated equipment by the standards of 2007, 8, but at the same time, the lovely, lightweight 4K equipment we have today that's in our pockets didn't really exist. So, we had to use what we had. And I think it was that kind of ingenuity that made the project kind of what it is and memorable. We could kind of get away with a lot more and make it look more like a Grindhouse film, like an exploitation film. So that was something that was key. But nobody wanted to give me money. A lot of people would be like, look, we would love to finance a movie, but does it have to be horror? Can it be romance? Can it be comedy? Can it be an action film? And I was dead set on making Macabre Medicine, and I didn't get any money. I went to multiple different companies, sent a lot of letters out, got a lot of no's. I even did the whole, let's go to doctors and lawyers and dentists and try to get some money from them at the end of the year. And they, again, a lot of no's. And look, I had to make a school project by the end of 2008, summer of 2008. And I had to pitch it in front of a group of people. So by the end of 2007, we were already shooting Macabre Medicine. And I was just like, I'm going to use whatever funds I make from whatever. I was working at a hotel at that time. And use that money to go towards making the movie. And I was very lucky that I coaxed these guys into agreeing to do it. Because they didn't take a paycheck. Thank God. They could have said, hey, man, F you. Give me $1,000 a day and I'll act in your little piddly movie. And I would have been up Schitt's Creek,
Wait, we already shot it? What day is this?
Where'd you put the shed?
When's the Olympics?
Oh, where are the cameras?
Zebra cake who? But no, I think the fact that we didn't have any money kind of adds to the charm, and that's that.
Now, the special effects was also limited within this film.
Thanks.
How much was actually divided with that? Did you do a majority of the special effects, the blood and everything, or did Josh and even Ben even helped out a little bit while you were doing other responsibilities?
K&B came in and did that for us.
I was going to say John Caglione did. No, he didn't. I was inspired by John Caggs and Tom Savini and all these people. I wrote a huge paper on John Caglione because of The Dark Knight and all his work he did on Basket Case and Dick Tracy. So I still have that paper floating around one of the hard drives for my STEM. But I also talked about Savini and Greg Nicotero and all that stuff. But I did the majority of the effects, even though I think, Ben, you at one point wanted to learn how to do some of this stuff.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to contribute a little bit, but I really couldn't. I think the only thing that ended up in the film that I attempted was the scene where I kill the guy who in the woods who says, I'm on his private property. If you look at that terrible neck appliance, I tried to paint that, and I had never painted anything before in my life, so I had no idea what I was doing. That's why it looks so out of place and weird, but I think it just adds to the comedy, so it worked out after all.
thought it was seamless.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't even tell. The wig, too.
Wait, you painted that?
Yeah.
I thought I painted that.
No, you told me to
Will
paint
just
it.
felt a little bit better right there.
I was just beating myself up over that. I was like, who the fuck did this? I didn't even drink back then.
No, at the last minute, you were like, Ben, paint this. And I was like, I don't know how to paint this stuff. And so I was like, I don't know.
Kevin Spacey from Swimming with Sharks. Paint this.
It was like green, I think. And then I tried to go over it with something, and it didn't look bad. I mean,
You tried to fix what I had done, but it didn't really help at that point. It was too late.
It didn't help that the appliance looked like shit. It was literally just a piece of paper towel with fucking latex over top of it.
I molded that.
No.
I'm going to get it on this too.
No, it was doing the special effects. I remember we had so many effect scenes. There was a lot of death stuff that we shot that I didn't even put in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I was up late at night, so I was working on The Writers, a Todd Michael Smith movie, and Macabre Medicine at the same time. And I was doing so many effects gags for both movies that I didn't have the power to dry the appliances overnight, so I had a fireplace going in the middle of the summertime, remember? To heat these, to get them to dry. I would lay them out in front of this fireplace.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
that sounds very, very Macabre Medicine.
That sounds like something you would do.
But I don't remember it.
You don't remember that?
No, I don't either.
No.
But you remember the workbench I had?
Oh, God.
Yes.
That's pretty unforgettable.
I didn't talk about that.
So it was a workbench.
Yeah. There was a slab of wood in his bedroom.
It was in his bedroom, which his bedroom. I don't know how do I describe this.
Cold, dark dungeon?
Well, it was like a chameleon. It changed every week. Like, one week it's an office, the next week it's got a bed in it, the next week it had a workbench. I'm like, this is the most confusing room. It would just change at will.
It had a futon,
Yeah.
a bunk bed,
Yes.
a computer, TV setup.
Oh, yeah.
And
All
then,
the computers, the e-machines, all of it. It's all true. But the workbench was built into the wall. And when he first had it put in, it was like, wow, this would be a really good space, because we all knew he liked working with makeup effects and everything. Now he had a nice big workbench, and it was all of, I don't know, 72 hours, and we come back and it's like already stained with blood, and it's got stuff everywhere, like all over it, and stuff that's crusted on it, like it's been there for years. I'm like, this checks out.
Yeah, and
this definitely feels right.
the workbench actually is in the movie.
Very much.
Yeah, towards the beginning, Haywood's first kill, that guy that he kills and dissects that table that the guy's laying on, is actually the first workbench, and the guy I dissect is actually my oldest brother, Jason.
All right.
Yeah, I'll put a pin in it after this, but I was actually very upset when the workbench got tore out.
Really?
It was like the end of an era.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Will's like, we can put it back.
I still got it.
It was like, no, it really felt weird when you were redoing that room again and was taking it out. Like, there was a lot of history there. A lot of history there.
Well, now we have the workbench in the shed, the makeup room.
Yeah, very nice makeup effects little studio that Will has back in the back now.
Yeah, it's a big upgrade. He built himself a makeup effects studio in his backyard, and it's actually nice. Like, I would actually sleep in it if I had to.
Yeah, air conditioned.
Ooh, yeah.
Well lit.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been possible without Brett Hammond, of Brett Hammond Films. But no,
Nice plug there.
well, he helped build it.
Yeah.
But like, it's a great workshop. But like, I kind of got tired of living and sleeping in the same place where I was breathing in, latex fumes and stuff like that. The ammonia that was kind of wafting into my face. It wasn't healthy. It's probably why I have a bunch of problems now.
Take two Monster Makers, call me in the morning.
Yeah. But like, I remember, as we were going on, remember when we went to, I remember, Ben wasn't there for, but when we went to Towson, I just, Sean C. Phillips called me up and was like, hey, I've got these 3 guys, they're going to come die, and I quickly created some prosthetics and effects to make those scenes happen. And half of them got cut out. Anthony Jackson, I liked him so much, I was like, well, I want to have him in the sequel. Sean C. Phillips just disappears in the movie because I wanted to have him in the sequel. And, Rob Zayman has a great sequence where he's getting strangled and then the rope starts cutting into his neck. I made that. I think that was a part of Pliance and part out of the kit makeup. And I just built a lot of these things just with latex and cotton and paper, toilet tissue because that's all I had. I tried to do some very mild sculpting. I think one of the first major pieces I tried to sculpt was Jason's eye wound.
Oh, yeah.
And it looked nothing like an eye wound. It just looked weird looking, remember?
Yeah, vaguely.
And I watched a lot of... So what the fuck is... Did you see that?
No.
It's a fucking ladybug.
Oh, okay. That's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I'll have to put that...
You should probably calm down.
I didn't know what it was, though. I saw it fly by. You'll have to put that bug on the payroll.
Will's very skittish right now.
Listen, as long as it doesn't say any speaking lines, we're good.
Okay, good. I just didn't know if he was on scale or,
It's people who call your people.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. There it is right there. So, what was I talking about?
Well, the makeup effects. I was going to say, is like the one you did on Rob was really cool, in particular. But God, do you remember how cold it was?
Oh, yeah.
Out there on the side of that hill, we were in a state park.
Yeah.
Or some kind, not even a state park. It was like a regional
It was
thing.
a trail behind a YMCA.
Oh my God. And there were a lot of people that saw us. They thought it was pretty cool that was happening there. But man, that was so cold.
We started the death there. We ended it at MJ Kelly's house.
Yeah.
And we had him hook up like lights and stuff like that, and we actually lit it. And the cool thing about it was
we actually lit it.
MJ had a couple of lights, thank God for that. But we had it so when he was like sawing through, the rope actually went up underneath the prosthetic, so it actually looked like it went through the neck.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's freaking cool. But we went through, again, it was like gallons of blood that we just kept playing. There's like a picture of me, remember, with a bucket of blood, and I had my hands drenched in it. And Rob was cold, but we got him washed up really quickly. And then...
but we didn't get done that night until super late.
Well, we shot the death stuff first, and then we did the dialogue stuff. Mm-hmm. And the last thing we shot was Sean talking to, Uncle Ted, who wasn't even there.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, we'll splice this together because we were trying to make it work. And Sean was a big proponent as to why we made it into a feature. Remember, he came over. He was working on the writers.
Yeah.
I was doing the effects on the writers, and I was helping shoot the death scenes on the writers. And Sean and MJ were in it, and their death scenes were cut. And it's a shame because they were wonderful death scenes. They came over to my house. They stayed here, and I was like, "Let me show you a little something. I think you might like it." And I showed them like a rough cut from the STEM presentation of Macabre Medicine, and Sean was like, "I think people are really going to like this. I think you should actually make this into a feature." And I was kind of like, I don't think so. And then I was like, you know what, maybe he's right. Let's do it. And we did. And what we have is what you get. But yeah, as far as effects go, I was watching a show called Indie Mogul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff was cool, but I felt like when I tried to build it, maybe I wasn't doing it right. It just didn't seem practical. It didn't work as well as I would like it to, so I would try to enhance parts of it. And like one of the things we did was like there was the heart being torn out. We made that one thing for the shotgun blast, the stomach. Remember, out of the pillow.
Yeah.
And I enhanced that a little bit. And there was a bunch of little gags that we did. I mean, realistically, all we really had was some liquid latex and some nose putty and some other miscellaneous objects we had lying around the makeup effect shed. So that's what we used. But it was very DIY. And if Ben remembers this more probably than you, well, gosh, you probably remember this. Remember the little makeup kit I had?
Oh, yeah.
The little purple kit that had
Yep.
It's unforgettable.
His
car was stacked high all the time.
With just makeup stuff.
Yeah, boxes and bottles of blood. It was a rolling makeup effects unit.
It did not look good whenever he got pulled over.
Yeah, there was blood stained in that back seat.
Yeah.
I've got pulled over multiple times. We'll talk about that later. But how I got most of my makeup, it was grease paint that I got from like a Halloween store. I would wait for the local drugstore to have a Halloween sale on all their stuff after Halloween, and I would go and buy a lot of the makeup and liquid latex because it was like 75% off. And then as I evolved as a filmmaker and was like making Macabre Medicine, I was starting to buy stuff from monster makers. And then eventually Biddy Mold Supply, who I buy a lot of my stuff from them now, because I got really big on the Platsil Gel 10 silicone that they sell, because it was really like they had a cut kit that was really realistic, and we used it a lot in Macabre Medicine, a lot of silicone. So, there's some cool stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that we did early on that you'll never see because a hard drive crash. So,
That's true.
Now this one is for Josh. There's a lot of mix and match, and scenes are always changing, kept in, left out, or whatever. But based on your opinion, with these changes, like, how did it really affect your character, bouncing back and forth, having to almost re-change everything, re-act everything in the moment? How did that work out for you throughout this movie?
Well, you've seen it, right? So I don't generally like myself on camera. I don't think I'm like an all-star actor.
I think you're great.
I appreciate that.
I think you had a good presence and a good look on camera. I think you both do. I think you don't give yourself enough credit.
I appreciate that very much. The first thing that is just glaringly obvious is that my character clearly is trying about 15 different dietary regimens through the course of the feature. My weight fluctuated wildly. Some scenes I'm pretty pudgy. Other scenes I'm very skinny. Other scenes I'm going the other way again. And at one point I look like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So that's the first thing. That's a little self-deprecating, but it's true. It's like I noticed that when I watch. I'm like, wow. And that's just because of the course of time. Things change, people change, whatever. In terms of my acting, I'm always... And I don't know how to compare it other than like a George Costanza type. Like, I'm always very intense. I think, especially when we first started, I didn't have a very wide acting dynamic. I was just on or off, and, that translated to my character being very manic a lot of times, very intense, a lot of very sharp quips, that kind of a thing. And Will kind of kept that themed through, I think, especially after he saw how I was portraying the character. But it worked to his benefit, because Sam is a very intense person. Like, I can't imagine the movie without Sam being as intense as he was. And I've had people tell me that I was their favorite character because of that. Like, it's just absurd.
A lot of people say that.
It's like, and I love that. I sincerely love that, because for the first... I don't know, half the production, I was just sort of winging it. I think by the time we got done, I had kind of developed some more chops. I'm definitely not like an Academy Award winning actor, but we got kind of more professional in that. Like, I would, read the script ahead of time. Like, but when we first started, it was like I'm getting fed lines off camera a lot, that kind of a thing. By the time we were done, I had really gotten down, like, I need to make sure I'm prepared, and, making sure I knew the material. By the time we were done, I had to look at the paperwork a lot less, unless we were making changes on the fly, and I got better at kind of resetting mentally after a take and jumping back into it. And I think that just is part of, having a project that is so long, and you kind of get that rhythm, and you develop that over time. But yeah, in terms of my character, he's pretty much intense the entire way through. Didn't start off really by design, but Will really seemed to like it, and I think it kind of became part of my character's psyche, which is fine for me, because it made it very easy for me to portray that ridiculousness.
Throughout the process of that, did that stress also help you out as well? Stress is usually a good way to be therapeutic and to get through scenes and whatnot, but like as far as prepping it goes, and sometimes you have to take a break from acting or having to do other responsibilities that Will may have asked you. Was that a big benefactor for you throughout this as well?
Can you clarify a little bit?
Such as if you were having problems like acting certain scenes or having to like I mentioned before, reacting certain scenes or in between takes, like having to build up and where to go, and maybe it might be a difference of creative differences or something like that. Did that add more to what you needed to do to succeed with this character?
Yeah, I mean, I think a classically trained actor would probably have struggled with that more, because people. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I think that's more the mindset of somebody that really is getting deep into a character and is trying to figure out where they're coming from and being able to kind of put their own style on it and talking to the director and the writer and saying, you know, I think my character does this, or, you know, I think my character has this for a job, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but you kind of had that moment. You were like, I think my character should have an earpiece. I was like, genius.
That was the one time. That was the one time. There was a little bit of it definitely. Will raises a good point. The earpiece was definitely my. Like, I think it was a shared thought.
Yeah.
I verbalized it, and he goes, yes. But I think that dynamic is really important, personally. But I just wasn't thinking about it that deeply until much later in the process. And also, I didn't want to step on Will. Like, you know, it's his character. I'm just reading the lines as they are, or making changes as he saw fit. There wasn't really any butting of heads in terms of, like, I think my character should do this, you know, or I think they should figure this out. A little light back and forth, but it wasn't anything that I would probably have a stronger opinion now, like how I am now, and also having, you know,
the experience of working on various projects. Yeah,
exactly. I would probably have more of an opinion, but ultimately, you know, and I subscribe to this heavily. It's like, it's his vision, it's his movie. Well, you know, I'm working in that confines.
I do remember when we were doing some scenes, you would just start laughing and like shaking your head, and I'd be like, what? And you're like, it's just your ridiculous script. The lines
it's very funny though.
Yeah, I
know. There were moments where it was like, this is insanely implausible, but we were so far off the planet Earth with some of it. It's like, what am I quibbling about?
But I think it was at that point we had become like, we committed to the fact that this is now a comedy.
Yeah.
And the one line
definitely.
that I'm talking about was when, like, we were all sitting around that table, and you were reading
right here. Actually,
yeah, it was right
here
in
this spot.
And you were reading, and you just started like laughing, putting your head down. I thought something. I was like, "What is it?" And you were like, "It's the script. Read this line out loud, Will, and tell me what you think." And I was like, "Boris is going to cook us up some chicken, and then we're going to go in the back and play some board games." And you were like, "And that doesn't seem odd to you?"
I read it.
Yes,
I did read it. I read it. See, good question. I just, you know, I don't know if I've answered aptly enough, but that's just sort of my thoughts on the process there.
Now, Josh, like when this was a comedy originally, and then of course it bounced through like to straight up horror. It's like, how did that really did that actually affect you a little bit too? Like, okay, you were sticking with comedy, and then as it progressed, it's like now we're doing the horror-esque, and then was it because of looking at the footage at the same time? Did that actually help as well?
Yeah, I think the farther we went, well, there were always a few comedic elements, right? Because we knew it was in the vein of a Grindhouse.
And the editing, it was supposed to be like the continuity, and then the editing.
Exactly.
And then maybe one or two small lines.
It wasn't until we got a little farther down the road that this thing kind of grew a life of its own, because I think there was a bit of me in that contribution as well, because my character is kind of comically pissed off perpetually all the time, and what'd you say? What do you mean? He did what? You have what? You saw who? Like, after you go through that enough, and we have some scenes that are just, you know, clearly no one's going to get through this, watching this without busting a gut. It's like, okay, we can lean into this more. And we definitely started leaning into it more. I think the moment I knew the change for us on that side of the camera that was glaring was when we shot the scene where me and Boris and Jeff are in at his place or some place. Spoiler alert, it's actually in the same room that the workbench was in, Will's bedroom. But the whole idea of that scene of me pouring people a drink and then just spilling it everywhere came from Clue. And Will was like, yes, let's put that in there. And we're shooting it, and I'm just spilling this stuff, this soda, everywhere. And I'm like, okay, I can feel the winds of change have definitely blown through here. But in a fun way, it was hilarious to watch that back afterwards. So I don't. Again, I'm kind of just throwing all this word salad out there into the universe, but it.
You know what? I hate to cut you off, but you know what I think kind of clicked in our minds about making this more funny? So Josh came over one day with a DVD, and he was like, "Man, you got to watch this." And we sat in this room and watched a movie called Burn After Reading.
Yeah.
And I think we watched that, and I was like, God, some of that stuff is like ridiculous but funny.
Yeah.
And like maybe since we threw the script out, we should kind of tailor this more so to be more of like a comedy that is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And kind of spoof those films, these exploitative, because before we were trying to make like a serious exploitative horror film. And then as we threw this thing out, I was like, well, what if we just skip that and actually make a comedy that kind of lightly makes fun of those movies and like the characters and how they're done. And it was a mess, I will admit, and that's partially my doing. But also, you know, a lot of people who watched it didn't understand it. And two, a lot of those, like, you know, exploitation films that are lesser known, like, you know, back then you could buy a Grindhouse set of like 25 movies. None of them made a fucking lick of sense. And I think that got in my head too of like, okay, it's okay if this movie doesn't make sense because that is accurate to what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Now that I've gone through and seen the cut because we had a 3-hour cut that made plenty of sense. It was really a competent movie, but it was 3 hours, and
it kind of ruined the charm a bit.
Yeah.
Making it, you need to make medium sense.
Yes, yeah.
It's like not too much sense, but not too little sense. It's right in lukewarm sense.
I think that was like when I was like editing this. We had like 20 different edits at one point.
Yeah.
And Josh came over and kind of helped me kind of build it to what it is now. He helped me color it and. We added Grindhouse grain. Remember those Photoshop files?
Will did a ton of work on that, and like it had been sitting for a while. Like Will had continued working on it, but he wanted to coalesce it all into one timeline, and we did all kinds of up-converting on it, and as best as we could, because the codecs were so like varied that it was using from a technical perspective, and it took a good few months before it made its way into Premiere, and then it kept going. It took another like year of
audio editing. And,
yeah, it was a lot.
You know, just trying to make the movie make sense. And then I think I found files that I hadn't seen for years. And then even like, you know, I scrapped the project. We'll talk about that later, but I scrapped it for many reasons. And then when I redug it back up, I was like, you know, this is not so bad. I showed a friend of mine, and he had everybody I seem to show this movie to. They always say the same thing, like, "Yeah, it's a dud. It's not the greatest." And then like a week later, they're quoting the movie, and they're like, "You know what? It's not as bad as I thought it was. It was actually a lot of fun," and I'm quoting the hell out of it. So you know, it's like that does happen. So, but we put a lot of work into that movie. I know we're kind of jumping around here, but I'll leave the floor to you, Mike. I don't want to jump too far into. I'm sure you have more questions.
Now, when it comes to the scenes, and all you guys could give your input as well, like there are scenes that may or may not have worked. Were there scenes that were kept in the movie that probably didn't draw as much interest, but you had to leave it in there almost like a sacrifice? And then were there scenes that were good, but you just didn't really work out within the continuity of the movie itself that you had to leave out?
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say I think you're the best position to answer that one because that is definitely edit. territory.
I think there were scenes. Now I look back at some of the deleted scenes that we cut out, and I'm like, well, you know what? That would have made more sense. But again, like there's a whole, and here's another thing: is that there were scenes that we shot that got lost on a hard drive, like multiple files that were either really cool death scenes or they helped the movie make sense. There were scenes that I wrote that helped tie some things together that never got shot because I wasn't here and Josh was working and he couldn't do it. And I remember we were going to shoot at the Harvest Diner. There was a scene where Josh meets the agent character, and they're kind of conspiring to talk about Haywood, and the agent's like, no, it's Jeff, and Sam's like, no, it's Haywood, and he wants to prove the agent wrong. And that was a huge kind of catalyst into Sam's character of why he wants to put Haywood away. And it never got shot because the owner of the diner thought that we were going to make fun of the diner. I was like, no, we're not. We eat here all the time. Like, why would we do that? The reason why we want to do it is because we eat here all the time. It was a pinnacle meeting spot for all of us. And that was one of the reasons why that never got shot. And then, with us moving, me and Ben, it was hard for us to get down to shoot key scenes with the rest of the characters. So we ended up adding different characters. And that's why there's so many characters that just appear. And it's like, well, we're trying to make this make somewhat sense. And there's some really good stuff that we cut out that, like fake trailers. There's a couple of fake trailers that we didn't add in there because of, one thing or another. They'll be on the DVD. There are also scenes that help, like there was a whole subplot with the real Haywood's brother. My character goes and sneaks into Haywood's house and steals a phone book and actually calls his brother. And that's where I kind of learned that Haywood's been missing. The real Haywood's been missing for weeks. And that the Haywood I've been talking to might not be who he seems he is. So that's when I kind of get my idea of like, this guy, maybe Sam and Boris were right, and Jody.
I love how even though it's literally staring you right in the face at that point, there's a chance he's still telling the truth.
Yeah, but that's the comedy in it, because there was a lot of these horror films like that where it's obvious the character, they know the character, like, I see the killer kill somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I don't know.
Nah. Yeah.
Maybe if I saw. I think my favorite, and I'm so upset that it got cut. The one scene that got lost in all of this was the one where it's the scene where we realized that Haywood was a robot the entire time. Lost to the sands of the edit bay.
Didn't we actually have a scene like that?
I don't know. You tell me.
I didn't know about
Why don't you tell me? I guess you were there.
I didn't know about this subplot.
No,
I live in the Isle of Congo.
That's just a classic Will joke. It's got to come out, everyone. There's your Easter egg for you.
Well, we did shoot that ending where the walls cave in on me.
Yep.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Because remember we showed you the walls and you were like, man, I got to get some cardboard and spray paint. Me and Ian Cromer built these walls, and then I left them in the basement and they warped because of the moisture. So we tried to shoot it. I think me and Ben, right?
Yeah, we tried to shoot a scene of walls collapsing in on Will. Like I had a trap where it crushed him, but the walls had warped so bad that they just kept kind of bending over on top of his head.
But I do remember you weren't here for it. Me and a few other people shot the effects portion of that, of me being crushed by the wall. Because I saw Saw 5 and I was like, that's cool. Wouldn't it be funny if we did that? And we did it, and I can't find the footage, so I think that was one of the things lost to the sands of time of the hard drive fiasco of 2010. But yeah, there were a lot of scenes I think would have helped make the movie make more sense. And even now, as I'm like finalizing this, it's like I've been toying with, should I go back and fix it and actually make it? And I'm like, well, then it wouldn't be what it needs to be. You know what I mean? I really wanted this movie to kind of be that aesthetic of like not your. I didn't want it to be like, to me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is an exploitation film. You know, it's a very good one. It's a very good horror film. Halloween is kind of like that too. They were made with low budgets, you know, but they had masters of their craft making them, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make like a really bad, lesser known horror film, and there's a ton of them out there. And we wanted to do a fake trailer that we never shot, where we had like, it was a 1950s giant bug fake trailer, and we had it cast and everything, but we just never made it. We wanted to do a blaxploitation trailer too, had that cast, and we never did it, you know, because I just wanted to move on with the project.
Now, there's various, you know, good and bad memories on and off set, or even before you even start filming. But, Josh, apparently you have a famous Philly story that you might want to share that everyone might be interested in.
How much time you got? Yeah, so there was this one night, and I'll never forget this. It was so funny in retrospect. So Will contacted me and was like, I'm going to Philly to get a camera. This is common, especially at that time. Like, he was always buying stuff on Craigslist. Sometimes he'd make out like a bandit, you know, really find some good deals. But this one sounded sketch right from the beginning. He said, I'm going to Philadelphia to pick up a camera. He said, you want to come with? I was like, sure. So he came by my house in Gumboro and picked me up, and we were on our way. And then I told Adam where we were going. He was in Georgetown, which is along that corridor there. And he said, yeah, I'll go. So we picked him up from the Walmart there. And we're going, and it didn't hit me until we got up almost to Philadelphia. I didn't think about the logistics, you know. Will just knew this is a person, they have a listing, we're going to get this camera from them. And when we got up near the Ben Franklin Bridge, I was like, so where are we meeting this person? He goes, oh, hold on, let me find out. And I was like, whoa, we don't know where we're meeting them at?
Well, no, you know, remember we tried to call them halfway up and he didn't pick up.
Yeah.
And another thing to add to the story is we didn't tell Ben, because I wanted to surprise Ben and be like, look, we got a brand new HD camcorder.
And so he finally got in touch with this person, and they're going back and forth. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. And Will gets off the phone. It's like, we're meeting him at the McDonald's. It was like, whoa, which McDonald's? The McDonald's?
The one.
There's McDonald's on every corner in Philadelphia.
Which I did not know that. I'm a country bumpkin from Delaware.
It's like, I'm from Gumboro, and I knew that. Come on.
Yeah, but didn't you go to Philly? I thought you had been to Philly before. I had.
Okay. I mean, it's a metropolitan area, you know. These fast food joints are all over the place. So he goes, hold on. Picks the phone back up, calls the person, and he's like, all right, we're going to meet him at one near this one street. And I don't remember the name of the street now, but it was just like, well, how do we get there?
Yeah.
And we were lost, man. We were real lost. We went back and forth over the Ben Franklin Bridge, I don't know how many times. And then finally talks to him again. He's like, look, we're not going to be able to find this. We got to meet somewhere else. Okay. Gets off the phone.
Well,
all right, we're going to meet him.
You missed a pinnacle part of the story. So I'm on the phone with this guy after the McDonald's thing, and he gives me an address for the McDonald's, and I think Adam spoke up from the back, because you didn't say anything. Adam was like, I think I know where that is. And the guy was like, who's that? He was really shady.
I forgot about that.
And he hung up the phone. He hung up the phone on us, and then he wouldn't pick up. And we're driving back and forth, and I'm like, come on, man. Like, we're already here.
Can't leave now. So then they were like, well, let's meet at the airport. He gets off the phone. He's like, we're going to meet him at the airport. And I said, no, we are not. No, I do not want to go there. We're in this post 9/11 world. We're going to go do a out of trunk deal at 10 o'clock at night at the Philadelphia International Airport. No, sirree. So then they were like, okay, good idea. No, that's, yeah, all right. They stopped answering the phone, I think, at some point. And we had to get off of the road. And we ended up in Trenton, New Jersey, which, lovely part of New Jersey.
Well,
some of the nicest folks ever.
we started driving, and we noticed, like, nice houses, nicer houses. Okay, this house has some bars on the window. This
my
house
God.
doesn't have any windows. They're completely...
I remember seeing a pretty rundown Burger King we stopped at
Well,
for dinner.
before that, remember, I parked under a bridge, and I was like, we got to figure something out. And then all these guys were, like, walking around the car.
Oh, yeah, well, Will was like, I'm going to stop and ask for directions. I was like, if you stop and ask for directions, I'm throwing your ass out, and I'm driving your car home.
I just did that to mess with you.
Scary as hell.
I was just messing with
So we ended up kind of stopping, and we had to try and get our bearings. And we figure out, well, okay, we need to get on 95 south to get back to Delaware. Didn't know which direction to go, and we ended up seeing this police officer in a vehicle underneath of an overpass. So we go up, and we're driving real slow, and they were all by themselves, like no one else is down this little path here. And Will was like, all right, you know, who's going to be the man? No, he was like, what do we do? And I was like, hold on, I'll go talk to him. So I walk up to the car, but I didn't want to startle this person. So I have my hands up, and I'm like, you know, just slowly walking over. And I get up, and my heart was beating. I was really nervous. Because it's a scary thing. This police officer is parked under an overpass. It's dark, you know. So I get up by the car, and this officer, is completely asleep, like just snoozing it up on the job. So I knock on the window very lightly, and oh my God,
Well, he woke up and he like brushed his shirt off like he had crumbs on him.
He was very large, so. He rolls down the window, and I said, I'm sorry, we are lost. We cannot find our way back to 95. Do you have any idea of which way that direction is? And he looks up. I'll never forget it. He goes, yeah. And he looks up, and he goes, it's right there. And there's this huge sign that says 95 South and a big arrow. And I was like, okay. So we get on 95, and we're driving. It's like, okay, we're home free. And Adam was tired. He fell asleep. I fell asleep. Will's, you know, trying to keep awake. He's listening to music. And I remember drifting off, and I woke up at one point just as we were going under another big road sign. And we were going towards Baltimore. And I fell asleep, and when I woke up, we were in Baltimore. Like, scary-ass Baltimore. And I'm like, dude, this is the gift that keeps on giving. What are we doing? We ended up having to call my friend Gerald, and he map-quested it for us. He, like, Google mapped it for us.
Well, remember, we didn't have GPS at the time.
Yeah.
Or a phone that had, like, I think I had a BlackBerry with GPS, but, like, it didn't work. And then we tried to call Ben, and Ben tried to help us, but we just didn't know where we were to give him proper directions.
Yeah, we could not get bearings.
Because we went to, like, a gas station to get a map.
Oh, the map, yeah. So I tried to look at this map, and the gas station was so dilapidated. And I crack open the map, and I'm like, okay, I can use this to figure out where I am. And the guy comes over, and he goes, you can't use that unless you buy this. And this place, there's no one in there. There's a couple stacks of water, like, you know, Aquafina. There's no anything holding any of the products up. They're all just lying on the floor. And I was like, well, we're lost. This is the only way I'm going to be able to see if we can get him. He goes, if you want to, you got to buy. If you're gonna use this. I'm like, are you? Oh man, I was so mad. I walk out. Gerald ended up map questing it for us, and he directed us to Ritchie Highway. And
didn't he do it like? All our batteries died. But mine. And
we were really.
You were holding on to your phone, and literally, like, it was shutting off while you were trying to input the number in my phone.
Yeah.
And then my phone kept dying, and we would, like, turn it off, leave it off for a second, turn it back on. You'd be like, all right, which way now? And he'd go, like, to the left.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was wild, man. We didn't get back home until the sun was rising. We dropped Adam off, and I slept like I had never slept before when I got home.
It
was quite an experience.
And Josh, when Adam was like, hey, I don't know, like, you want to stay at my place? Because it's early? And Josh was, like, saying something.
I was asleep.
We couldn't understand what he was saying. And then Josh, like, Adam's like, what? What? Bicycles and tricycles at 12 at 12. And then, like, Adam was like, he like jumped. He was scared. He was like, what the fuck? So that was Ben. What do you remember from that? Because we did call you a couple times.
I just remember that I did not know that you guys were doing this trip, and you called me out of the blue trying to get directions.
We lost, man. We super fucking lost.
Trying to get directions. Trying to get me to MapQuest everything. If you guys remember MapQuest. But the thing is, they couldn't even tell me, like, where they were, so I need, like, some kind of starting point.
Yeah, remember we went to the Burger King, and we got the receipt, and I was like, the name was, like, everything was printed fine, but the name of the town.
Yeah.
And I went up, and I asked them, like, what the town name was, but I couldn't understand the woman. She was like, I was like, what? Yeah, thank you. And I, like, walked away, and Josh was like, where are we? I'm like, and Josh was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I couldn't understand what they were saying. And he's like, oh. I think you walked up there and you came back. I'm like, what'd she say? And you were like, we're going to go somewhere else.
It was a crazy experience. That's all there is to it.
Were there any other crazy stories from...
Oh, I'm sure there are, but I don't know if it's legal to divulge. No, I don't know, man. It's been a minute. That was over 10 years ago.
I remember... This
all
is
over.
Yeah.
A
16.
story, and you kind of remember this because we were talking about it the other night. So I would keep the syringes, and you remember this?
Yeah.
And the glove department of my car.
License and registration.
Yeah. And so I had the big like syringe that we would use. The big red one. And then I had these little teeny diabetic syringes. And I had a vial of, like, diabetic medicine. It was my uncle's stuff. I was stealing it from him. But in case, he wanted to drive with me. So they pulled me over one night.
Oh, my God.
Because I think somebody, like, it was just like a routine, like, we're just stopping you for this license. And I opened the glove department, and they saw the needles. And instantly, like, 5 cop cars came. And they were like, what's this all about? And the cop was looking at me, and he kind of reached and picked one up, and he goes, more importantly, what's this about? And he grabs the real big one. He's like, what are you using this for? I'm like, oh, we're making a horror picture, and the killer uses that, and, and I.
Yeah, officer, the killer uses these.
I was able to...
Not me.
I would
never...
I was able to talk my way out of it because I had the camcorder and I was showing them footage. I'm like, this is what we're doing. And then they were like, what about these little ones? I'm like, oh, my uncle's a diabetic and sometimes he rides with me. He never rode with me. But, we were using those little needles for like some of the sequences.
Yeah.
And they were real needles. Some of them, remember, I pulled the syringe, the needle out.
Yes.
Or I would trim them so they weren't, like, they couldn't stick you. And put wax inside of them. But, I do remember that happening, and that was a very scary and interesting time. And if you ever have any props like that, they should be tagged, numbered, put on a list, and then put in a bag and just put it in your trunk. And if they ever pull you over, hey, I'm working on a film. This is the list of the props I have. They're in the back. I mean, remember that time I got pulled over in Turtle Creek?
At the Little Caesars?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Pizza.
Yeah, Will and I were...
We had the dead body in the trunk.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember. Will and I were living together, and we were hungry late at night, and we decided to see if we could get any food, and the only thing we could think of was the Little Caesars. We pull up, and they're closed, so we start backing out, and immediately we get pulled over. Apparently, there had just been, like, a robbery in that like, little shopping center, and we were pulling away as the police pulled up, so they pulled us over, and the whole car is littered with fake blood, a fake dead body in the trunk. I think it was in the trunk anyway. It might have been in the back seat. These needles, like all kinds of stuff. And, they searched the car and everything. Thankfully, they ended up believing us that we're just, film students making a film.
Well, they were, taking the guns out. They were in the trunk.
I forgot about the guns.
They took the
guns.
They took the guns out, and they were pointing them at each other and shooting each other. And they're like, "Check it out!" And then
they're plastic guns, by the way, just to clarify. Plastic guns.
But they were painted to look real. And then they got a call, remember? And they were like, "Oh, gotta go!" And they just threw the shit in the back of our car and ran off.
Yeah, we didn't get pizza, but we also didn't get arrested, so, you know.
It worked out.
Yeah, there was one time where I very nearly broke my nose. I thought it was broken at first, but I think it was just some bruised cartilage or something.
God,
So-
know that.
It was for the scene where Haywood kills the landowner with the shovel. So Will was like, so it's going to be a scene where Haywood's digging some graves in the woods. This is where he dumps his bodies, and the landowner comes across him, and Haywood has to kill this guy with the shovel. So he's like, so we got to go out there the night before, and we got to dig these graves. So Will and
Average,
I, you know,
normal, yeah.
it's got to be 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Will and I are deep into the woods. The only light that we have is from the headlights of his car. We're just with shovels trying to dig these graves through all these tree roots and everything, which of course didn't work out that well. But at one point, we had to turn off the headlights because the car battery was going to die. And so we're digging in the dark in the middle of the woods, and I happened to slip, and the nose or the handle of the shovel went right up into my nose. But also during the whole time, I'm sitting there saying, like, Will, you know that if anyone comes across this, there's no good explanation for this. And here's the thing. Those graves are not in the movie. We don't see them. So we dug them for nothing.
I've bled for my art.
We see you do. We see you like digging the grave.
We see me digging, but we don't see the
but
graves.
that was supposed to be used for a scene where I catch you dig, like, because you were.
Yes.
The whole point of it was you
What
were.
he's saying was it was supposed to.
The shot of the grave that I dug and broke my nose over
Right.
is not in the film.
Yeah,
you
I
don't
know.
see the hole in the ground.
But the grave is still there. It's still there.
Wow. Okay.
And the reason for that was I was before I confront him in the house, I was supposed to follow him, and you find out that he's been traveling from like state to state to bury the body so he wouldn't get caught because his neighbor's like bitching like, Louis Anderson here, he got bodies underneath that shed. It smells like crap. And he's like, well, I'm going to bury the bodies somewhere where he can't smell them. So he goes across state lines, and I follow him, and then we were supposed to get in a little tussle,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I had the tire iron at the end, because you knock me out and drop it near me, and I come to and grab it, and then hitchhike, and that's why it takes me a long time to get to you when you're trying to kill the kid.
I just picture you just with a tire iron, just out the side of the road with your thumbs up, like I gotta go save my this kid from being murdered by my best friend.
That's nice. Take your pants off. But no, that scene, and then like I remember when we actually shot that scene, how chaotic and cold it was, and how the batteries died.
The scene where I kill the landowner.
The landowner, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty much every scene though. It was just chaotic and or cold, and the batteries on something were dying.
Well, the car battery. Remember the car batteries?
The car battery died.
It was my car and what? Is it Scott's car? Or yours?
Yeah, I think Scott's car. No, I didn't have a car.
And then we went back, and I got my grandmother's SUV and drove it back there and jumped us.
Yeah.
And then but remember, Scott was cold. He's like, no more blood.
Yeah.
And what did Will do?
Will threw a bucket of blood on him after he said no more blood, and we said okay. Because Will was just like that back then.
There was so much blood in that scene, and you don't really get to see a lot of it. But we were like up to our ankles in blood in that forest area.
Yeah, there was a lot. It was everywhere.
Because I remember I just had 2 liters of blood hanging in my car, like tons of them, and I was just like,
As you do.
Not so much anymore. But that was a
Carbonated.
kind of. Oh yeah, Josh remembers that. Why don't you talk about your Why don't we go through and just talk about our experiences with the blood, starting with Josh?
I hated it. I didn't mind it. Well, first off, like I didn't, especially at that time. I had a pretty nerdy wardrobe, and I ruined so many shirts and pants, and I didn't have that many to go around. So when I finally got the gist that okay, I need to be wearing stuff that I'm gonna be okay with being ruined, which I had luckily. After a certain point, I had plenty of clothes that my grandmother was giving me that I was like, I have no problem with this being destroyed at all.
The George Martin collection.
Oh, God. Yeah, but, no, I mean, I did not like it, though, when I had to put it in my mouth, because it really, how many times have you heard that one? It really had an adverse effect on me, I would borderline vomit every single time. And it was just a reflex to it. And after that, I had a really difficult time with anything that had like cornstarch or anything. It was hard.
Yeah, my experience with the blood was just being... Well, first my experience with Will's fake blood started when I was maybe, 15?
Yeah.
Maybe, when we first started making films together. So I was, like, getting used to being soaked in it all the time. And it's always hard to wash it all off. Like, you'll be in the shower forever, and then you'll find, like, a bit behind your ear, or, like, on the back of your neck or something somewhere. But my favorite memory, as far as, like, being soaked in blood goes, is the scene where Haywood is dissecting those girls in his basement.
Yeah.
And he comes out and he's suddenly soaked in blood and gets the hand sanitizer. There was actually a scene where we actually filmed, where I make some kind of weird cut and I just start getting hit with a geyser of blood. That's why I come out soaked in blood, which ended up being cut. But I just remember just endless amounts of blood just being thrown at me constantly. And I didn't really have a problem with the clothes because all my clothes were from the thrift store anyway, so I would just set clothes aside for this is filming clothes, this is clothes I'll actually wear to class and stuff. But yeah, I kind of got used to it after a while. I just got used to being real sticky all the time.
I remember one time you left a shirt at my house, and it had blood on it. But remember, sometimes the blood on like a dark shirt would kind of like the edges would stain like white because of the sugar. And you were like, "Hey, my shirt!" And you saw it, and it had like this white stain on it. And you're like, "Will,
yeah. What have you been doing with my shirt?"
Yeah. I was like, "No, it's the fake blood, really." Or when I would have slip and slides in the house with the blood.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got to do any of the slip and slides.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Maybe one. Yeah, he would just soak the floor of his hallway with fake blood and make it into a slip and slide, because why not? Just it's what you do.
There's actually a bit of blood still from Macabre Medicine, from the pen gag, in the kitchen still.
Well, keep it there.
Yeah.
Keep it there. It's a
just
souvenir.
one drop. There's just like one drop still there.
On this spot.
So when we give the tour, and people want to come to the house,
velvet roped around it, please don't touch.
But Josh, you did have a little bit of blood in this movie.
I did, especially when I died.
Yeah.
Now it grows on you, literally.
But
if you leave it on you too long, it'll start to grow. Now.
But did you die?
But did you?
But did you die?
Did you?
It's like I don't know, Will. Did I?
Well, I used to be your boss.
Yeah, well, you are no longer. How'd that happen?
I don't know, Jim.
No, I know. We've gone back and forth about that before, but I do like the scene where I'm attempted murder, at least. It's one of my favorite bits because the throwback to the video or
the movie of the ninja going.
Exactly. But it also was I don't know. Like I'd never been killed like that quite like that before, and I also love how that day in particular, I specifically had brought clothes that I knew I could totally trash, and they're all way too small for me. Like my character comes in, I've got this sports coat that's way too small, this button up that looks like a fruit stripe wrapper, and this fedora hat that was also a size too small for my head. So it's like all of his shit just shrunk in the wash.
You learned from the Sentinel trailer not to wear.
I did. It was hard because I really didn't have that many variety of clothes at that time that I liked wearing. Like I had pretty tacky clothes. My family just had me basically looking like a giant ball of denim everywhere I went for years. I wasn't one of those kids that had a real strong opinion about clothes until later on. But because of that, it was at a premium. So like I had to bring some stuff that I knew I could just let it go. There was one in particular. Oh my God, we ended up not doing it. But I had this shirt that was given to me that said JC on the front, Jesus Christ. And Will was like, "We got to kill you," and I was like, "No, that is a one-way shot to hell. I am not getting."
Do you remember the 3 for 3 for $10 sweatshirt?
Oh yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. But that shirt that I had, I didn't wear that shirt. My grandmother had given it to me, and I'm not big on wearing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I considered it for a second. I was like, no, this is pretty sacrilegious. I'm not going to do that. But no, I mean, it was fun. I mean, over time, it just became part of the process. But for a while, it was like really difficult to know what you were going to have to deal with after the fact, because like especially showers after that. Yeah. Oh my god. Well, that stuff would just mold to your skin.
Yeah, it's so sticky. And I heard stories from like about Simon Pegg for Shaun of the Dead. He's like, yeah, you know, he was sticking to the floor with how much blood was being thrown around, and
it was hard because like I have sensitive skin on my face, especially.
Me too.
And when you would have anything on my face, I would just scrub and scrub and scrub, and I had blisters for a while on part of my. I mean, cost of doing business. I didn't really care, but it was just impressive how much that stuff would stick. What? This is not your run-of-the-mill, like, you know, tube blood that you were getting from the store. This is homemade, but in a professional capacity. Like, it looked real, and it certainly dyed stuff.
Yeah,
it would dye anything it hit.
Do you remember when you did Friday the 13th, and I had you all bruised up and makeup and everything, and you went to work the next day?
People thought I got the shit beat out of me. Yeah.
You tried to wash it off, but I think we had like Pros-Aid over top of it, so it kind of stayed.
Yeah. Well, the trick I learned is just not to fight it. Like, you have to be expecting to kind of look a little messed up for a while after, because if you try to get it all off in one fell swoop, I always fail with that. I would just scrub and scrub and scrub with loofahs and everything. No, I would just let it run its course after that.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, I had people, and you're totally right, going, oh my God, what happened to you? You know, well, I hope the other person looks just as bad. And I'm like, no, it's all... I leaned into that for a few minutes because it felt cool to feel like people thought I got into a fight.
Fight Club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then they inevitably would figure me out. I'm a hack.
Well, you had a similar situation from one of the movies we did.
Yeah, so we're trying to film a sequel to another film that we did in high school, just a little short film. The sequel never got made, but Will had me in a bunch of gory makeup, and then the time came that we had to wrap for the day. You know, we're pretty young. I'm still a teenager at this point, so I had to walk home afterwards. Will and I only lived about a mile apart on some back roads, and I'm walking home covered in blood and gashes and everything from liquid latex and stuff. And one other kid from my school pulls up in his car and like hits the brakes, and my nickname in high school was Boone. And he just goes, "Whoa, Boone, what happened?" And I was like, "Oh, nothing. It's just makeup from this movie we're doing." And he goes, "Oh, I thought you got rolled." And then just like drives away. I didn't expect him to give me a ride. I wouldn't give me a ride with all that on me. But yeah, so I had to just walk home in the summer heat, covered in liquid latex and fake corn syrup blood,
nose putty, and some other miscellaneous.
Yeah, things he found around the shop there. Yeah.
Now, this question is for Ben. Now, during the light of the upbringing of Haywood West, how much time did you actually prep for that character before filming, and not just studying what the script would be? Like, how much did you actually put into it, or was it more of a simple approach, like, oh, this is fun, well, I'm just gonna act this, and then here's the results?
Well, you know, my performance came from a lot of very long hours of... No, I'm just kidding. So what I did was I stood in front of the camera and read the lines that Will gave me. Basically, I didn't really do much prepping at all because, like, again, like, I'm not an actor, and I especially wasn't back when I was a teenager. My whole performance basically came from me just being uncomfortable in front of the camera and just speaking kind of monotone because I didn't know how to act. But it kind of ended up actually working out in my favor. But yeah, I was just uncomfortable and just reading the lines. You know, I was just hanging out with my friends making a movie, but like I said, I was at that point where I had like, as a teenager, you know, had like no confidence or anything and didn't like being in front of the camera at all. So there wasn't really much prep at all. I just kind of wanted to do this with Will. So there really wasn't much of an approach other than I don't know what I'm doing or how to act, so I'm just going to speak my lines in a monotone voice, essentially.
Did you feel that this character would be compatible with you, or even if you were to look back at that character, would you have a different opinion about it as far as today goes compared to as a teenager?
Well, the funny thing is I started getting worried about halfway through the film about how people would perceive me if they saw the film, like, you know, like going out into like the professional world and stuff if they knew about it. And then eventually I got on a few more years, and then I just stopped caring, as, you know, people tend to do once they get a little bit older. But the thing that I thought was, like, looking back at first before people started seeing the film was I should have played it like more like big and more over the top and more like, you know, almost kind of cheesy. But then I started hearing back from people saying that they kind of liked the way that I did it, even though it was not on purpose. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that, like, I was so shy and stuff in front of the camera at that point. I think just everything just worked out for the best in the end, even though during it didn't seem like it was. Because, like I said, like if I had put thought into it like I would today, say Macabre Medicine was never made, and Will came to me today and said he wanted to make this and put you in it, my first thought would have been to, like, kind of, you know, be more animated and over the top. And I don't think that would have worked as well, so I'm glad that didn't actually end up happening. I'm glad it turned out the way that it did.
Now, portraying the lead killer, especially in this film, and it's a solid character, and it is a solid performance portraying this. There's several layers of Haywood exposed in this film. If you were paying attention to his mannerisms, to his actions, and it's usually ranging between his madness, from learning to curiosity to fetishness, and even to satisfy his own craving. Do you feel that this range of complexity of this character was almost like a useful tool for the character, or did you feel like it was like a 50-50 decision rather it should be a satire?
You know, kind of a little bit of everything. Like, Haywood is a little bit complex in that way. Like, usually you only get something like this that's kind of like one-dimensional. Like, either he's only bullied and he wants revenge, or, you know, he's a mad scientist character, or something like that. But he's kind of like all of the above. He's got a little bit of the mad scientist. He's got a little bit of he's being bullied and kind of wants revenge. He also kind of wants status and recognition, almost in a way. Which, you know, shows in his kind of like conflict with Professor Dongle, which is one of my favorite conflicts in the movie. But yeah, I mean, he is kind of like interesting in that way, that he's kind of like multifaceted, which kind of just evolved as the film went along. I think at first he was kind of more straightforward as like kind of like the mad scientist kind of character, but then like as we kind of went through different filming phases, he kind of started taking a life of his own and kind of became a character of his own. Which is funny because at first I thought, in a way, I had the most boring character, because like Josh's character is my favorite character in the movie. And I just felt like, you know, like Josh and Adam were having like so much fun, and they got to play these characters that I thought like they deserve their own spin-off almost, like of them just solving crimes. But then, like, as time went on and I finally got to see the finished movie, I like finally appreciated how it came together, and just the complexity of Haywood, and just his motives and everything are just they're kind of all over the place, but they kind of all work together at the same time. And so I ended up just really enjoying it, and you know, hoping to one day play him again.
Let me ask you this, Ben. How do you feel your portrayal differs from MJ Kelly's portrayal, and what did you think of MJ's?
So yeah, that's also like another part of the movie that I just love is I'm inexplicably replaced by another actor in one scene, which I think is hilarious. I love that. Which is MJ Kelly, and I love that, you know, he got to play him a little bit more over the top and a little bit more actually sinister. I think a lot of the time, like, my Haywood isn't that outright sinister seeming. He does do that in some scenes, but overall he's not that, like, he doesn't come out as sinister all the time, even though he is. And MJ kind of got to, it seems like, have like a little bit more fun with having just them outright sinister and maniacal and everything, and I thought that was a lot of fun to watch, and I really appreciated that performance too.
It was, as the director, really cool to see like you both had similar qualities, but one was more subdued and a little bit more realistic, which was you, and then the other was, I wouldn't say he was over the top, but he took more pleasure in the killing, as I felt you were more using it as a learning opportunity. Like, you were actually into studying what was going on, whereas he was like, I'm just strangling you to see what, like, how long it's going to take you to die, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. What did you think, Josh?
Yes. No, I mean, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's definitely, there's an evolution in there. And when it comes to MJ's portrayal, there's this pretty stark difference in terms of the style. And, you know, it feels, bearing in mind that, you know, removing the fact that it's a completely different human being playing this character, that he definitely feels like he has other intentions and other motives in mind. It keeps it spicy.
And you were the one who kind of helped bring that idea to me. With, you know, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of had like a little bit of an idea of, wouldn't it be funny if Hay would have just kind of played by a different person all of a sudden. And I got that idea from the movie Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I saw as a kid, where, you know, I believe Bela Lugosi passed away during the making of the movie, so they kind of just replaced him with another actor, but just had him cover his face most of the time. And I thought that was really funny, especially since it was obvious in the movie. So yeah, I just thought, like, I just happened to mention it to Will, and sometimes I just mention to Will things I think are funny, and then he just kind of takes it from there and does something with it.
Do you believe in, as opposed from the other actor that portrayed your character as to your character, do you believe in there's a difference between stylizing a killer and then dehumanizing from a killer to its victim?
Yeah. So, like, yeah, I mean, there's a big difference, like, you know, obviously, like you said, you know, MJ Kelly stylized the character, and I kind of just, like, dehumanized him, almost like he's, you know, like there's almost nothing there underneath. And that kind of, you know, it makes the kills kind of different, because if it's stylized, I guess, you know, the victim is, you know, almost like a plaything, like, as where with me, they're almost more like a tool, and it's kind of like a little bit different in that kind of way. So that's kind of interesting. It's almost kind of like, if you want to see the difference, like, in one character, like, you could almost look at, like, Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. Like, in his personal life, like, there's just nothing there behind him. He even kind of says that. And then, like, oftentimes when he's killing someone or kind of out in the world, he kind of stylizes his personality and everything, and it makes a big difference between, like, his approach and everything, and it just kind of reminds me of that, the difference between the two. So I think it's kind of interesting.
Now, after this film has finally came to its conclusion and everything's said and done, regardless of where it might have ended up, failure and success are common in every aspect, but in every profession as well. But teaming with, like, selected people, do you feel that failure or success becomes one of the sheer basis of the results? Which one do you think is more solid between the two, even after this is made?
Well, you know, failures are important because it's basically how we learned everything that we do. Mm-hmm. We just screwed everything up until we got it right. And then as far as success goes, like, to me, success can mean different things to different people. To me, it just means that we got it done, essentially. And to me, that it's a success. You know, so whether, you know, the film actually finally comes out and it's a success or a failure, whichever, any way that, you know, if you mean that financially or if people like it or not, to me, at the end of the day, it's success because we got it out there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think, you know, I don't think any of us is going to lose sleep over really whatever. I mean, we're going to be elated if people like it, but if they don't, I won't lose sleep over it if they think that my character's an idiot and a loudmouth idiot. Like, we we did this, and we got a lot of experience from it. We had a lot of good times from it. Like, it is a success in my mind's eye, and I'm not gonna regret being a part of it, you know. And I just don't see any reality where I'm weighing the pros and cons of, like, well, how am I going to measure failure or success for this? Like, it's not that serious. It's fine. Whatever happens is fine, and it's a big chunk of my life, and I'm happy that I did it, and that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to sit like someone watching the stock market when there's an IPO, like when it gets out into the world, you know.
I kind of look at it a little bit differently because this is my first film, and for years I wasn't very happy with it. It wasn't the original film I intended to make, and I constantly kept looking at it as a failure, and it took me a long time to realize, and this was like a bone-chilling realization, that maybe it's not all bad. There are some really bad horror films. I'm not saying this movie is fucking amazing, but I'm also not saying that it's bad either. You know, I think it's somewhere in the in-between. I think it's a fun film. And you know what? In the end, I got to do something at a young age that most people wouldn't even try to do. I made a low-budget to no-budget independent horror film with my friends. And I hope the takeaway is that people, you know, kids in college, anybody, they get together, they watch this, kind of like The Room, they poke fun at it, they laugh, they quote it. But I also hope that it inspires people, because that's, to me, what it's all about. I want people to look at this and be like, I want people to look at this and get the same feeling that I got when I was a young kid who thought that this career or making a movie wasn't tangible. And then I saw the original Evil Dead. And when I saw that movie, something clicked in my head that said, these were a bunch of kids making this movie. These were a bunch of friends. I can do that. And I hope that somebody sees this and goes, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I hope they do it better than me. But at the time that we made this movie, we had no money. We had no gear. We were borrowing and stealing just to get the movie done. And today, there's almost no excuse. You can do almost anything with a cell phone. And gear is more affordable. And it's better quality, too. You know, you just got to work on your story. So I hope that people get inspired by it and the story behind, not just the movie itself, but the making of the movie. And how, yeah, we had our ups and downs with this movie. We got it done. And I feel bad that it took this long to release. I just wasn't proud of it. And I battled with myself. I always felt like that me releasing this was going to hurt Josh's career or hurt Ben's career. And I was kind of like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to protect these guys. And after I had a long talk with them, they were like, yeah, we don't really care. Go ahead and release it. We're waiting for you to release it. So I was kind of like, all right. Oh,
yeah, I'm excited to get it out there. I mean, I think it's great.
It's a long time coming. A lot of people work
16
hard.
years.
Yeah,
17 years. Yeah.
Jeez.
I know. Sorry, man. I've counted it up when we were sitting here talking.
My life just flashed before my eyes, and I realized I got to get a life.
But you know, and trust me, we've between us three, I'm sure we've wanted to kill each other at times. We battled with each other, but we always kind of came back to the same conclusion that, hey, we're friends and we're just trying to make something here. And I couldn't ask for a better crew. I couldn't ask for better friends, and I couldn't ask for a better movie. Some people, I'm not expecting everybody to like it. I'm not asking for anybody to really respect me. And I think, like you said, Ben, like when we were making this movie, I, as a filmmaker, was evolving and becoming a better filmmaker as we were making this, but I had to dumb myself down to make the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, you know, we got a few years into it, and suddenly we actually knew what we were doing, but we couldn't show that on the movie because we didn't want it to just suddenly be good in that kind of sense. So, like, we actually got to a point where we were working on, you know, professional stuff and getting paid to do it. but then on the side, like grabbing the old mini DV camcorders and trying to be like, all right, we got to make this look bad. We got to light this like crap. We got to do all this kind of stuff.
And I think that for me, I was afraid that I, as a director, was going to be judged harshly on it, because I remember we took it to the Milton Theater, and we were going to submit Carrie's death scene.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, no, show this trailer. And I showed the trailer, and the people sitting next to me when it came up, because it said previews of coming attractions, and we actually used an old clip that they used in like a Grindhouse from the 70s that said that. And the guy next to me was like, they spelled previews wrong. And then when it came up, people just didn't know how to take it. And I was like, you know what? They're not going to understand this movie because they don't get the aesthetic. It's a very niche film, and a very certain group of people are either going to love it, most will probably hate it, but it is what it is. So, I'm happy I made it, though.
Now, regardless if the film would to just overall have negative, but let's say Haywood is the success of the film, how would you feel as a filmmaker and as you, Ben, portraying this solid character? Like, how would you treat this? Would you treat it as more professional, or would you treat it as a sample of your past career and moving forward, even potentially make a sequel to Macabre Medicine as Macabre Medicine 2?
Let me step in real quickly. I'm actually hoping that Ben becomes famous off this so he can pay my rent.
Yeah, so like, I mean,
I'm tired of Ben getting all the credit and only me getting a bunch of money.
Wait, you're getting paid? No.
You know, Ben's getting everything. He's traveling the world, eating the good food, getting more ass in the toilet seat.
Oh, God. No. Yeah, I mean, it would be weird to think if, like, one day I was, like, actually recognized as this character. That would be kind of weird to me, but because I'm a very, like, private person and an introvert, by nature, like, you know, I spend probably more time alone than with anyone else, which I like. Like, I enjoy that. But, you know, if that were to become a thing, which it's hard for me to wrap my head around that actually happening, but let's say that it did, I would just try to have fun with it as much as possible. You know, I wouldn't take it too seriously, but I also wouldn't be one of those people that want to, like, never be recognized for it. You know, some people come to, like, resent being recognized for certain roles. I definitely wouldn't want to do that. I would just want to have as much fun with it as I can. Just roll with it, essentially, and just take it one day at a time. I don't really have a plan for that happening, because that's hard for me to wrap my head around.
And we paid Ben very handsomely just to be here.
Uh-huh. First money I've gotten.
Before we roll out of here, is there do you guys feel like there is potential property for a Macabre Medicine 2? Like, where it could possibly lead? Just not to give too much away, but, like, do you feel like you yourself, Ben, could possibly have some interesting ideas and even have more fun with this character and to see where it could possibly go? And as well as you will, like, do you have, like, multiple different directions where this character could possibly go as well?
You know, as far as Haywood and a sequel goes, we are hoping to make a sequel. You know, I've read the script, and it's actually really good. I'm actually, if we get to make it, if we can get funding for it, I'm actually really excited about the idea of coming back as Haywood, which is something that I never thought I would feel, because, you know, like I said, in the past, I was always uncomfortable in front of the camera, and now I'm okay with it. And the fact that the script is really good, and the fact that we actually know what we're doing now, I'm actually really excited about the idea of hopefully one day getting to make Macabre Medicine 2, and getting to bring back this character, knowing more about who he is, and kind of having even more fun with it than I got to have the first time.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's got more legs now than it definitely had before, and I don't know what that looks like. I haven't read anything on it.
I thought you had the script.
If I do, I have lost it or whatever. I don't think I have it.
You're the main character.
It's on eBay.
Well, yeah.
Sam survives.
The highest bidder. But yeah, I mean, you know, who knows? Who knows? It's something that we've kicked around for a while now, and I think the next one will be a huge leap forward
Yeah.
from what the first one was. The first time in film history, the sequel will be better than the original. I guess not the first time.
Not the first time, but yeah.
One of the few times.
I'm really excited to do it because I can finally make a movie that I want to make and not compromise. And it's a, as Ben said, it's a very fun, very effects heavy movie. And, the good news about it is back when I wrote the script, it would have cost every bit of like $300,000 to make it. Now I have a lot of the gear and the know-how that I could do it for even like half that price. So, I want to be able to make the movie that I've always wanted to make. And whereas Macabre Medicine was kind of supposed to be like the 70s movie, even though we have modern things in it, this one is supposed to be the 80s sequel. And like Haywood, just to give away a little spoiler, he survives and he's trucked off to a hospital. And it's a lot like Halloween 2, where the whole thing takes place that night in the hospital, a place that Haywood West always wanted to be. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to play with that and to play with weaponry and deaths. And there's some familiar characters that show up from the previous movie. Some people that you thought that died. And some people who did die who come back as a ghostly apparition. And I kind of hope that we get enough money to kind of hire some actors that I looked up to that were in 80s movies. That, I think would be a fun little thing to have. And I think the character of Haywood West has legs. I mean, look, I'm not...
And arms.
And arms. And maybe a head, too.
In his house.
In the house.
Several.
And I think the cool thing is, like, I'm not comparing him to Art the Clown, but I really think that Haywood West could be... I wouldn't say as iconic, but I could definitely see Haywood West on a T-shirt in Spencer's Gifts. Sure. I think that would be kind of cool. Action figures and whatnot. We actually had action figures made.
Yeah, I never saw them.
They were cool as shit. It was Josh had one, I had one, Ben and
wow.
Yeah.
Where are they?
I'm not going to talk about that. I'll talk about that off air.
Okay.
The person who made them.
One of those deals.
Yeah. Gotcha. But we've been trying to rectify that and maybe get somebody else to make them. So
cool.
I would love to kind of play with the merchandising and
fedora hat and throwing knife.
No, you did. He had syringes. You had a lighter. It was actually really cool. Really cool. So no, I think Haywood West could be a cool character. I would love to do another 2 movies with him. The third one being in the 90s, and then we end that, and then we would do a spinoff called Diabolical Dentistry, which would have like maybe Haywood West's long lost brother. By that point, we'll be in our 50s. Phil West. Go West. But no, I love this. The idea for the sequel. I'm going to rewrite it after we release this movie. I'm going to put it out there and see where it goes.
Now, before we go, from each of you, what is the biggest benefit from this movie after looking back at it?
For me, really just the memories that come with it, and just the bonding experience that we got to make something really cool with my friends. That's the most valuable thing I got out of it, honestly.
Yeah, same. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Is it was a fun experience. It's very unique. I don't know how to articulate this. It's a very unique experience at a very unique time. Like, we were all being thrust into adulthood, and there's a lot of baggage that comes along with that, trying to figure out your identity and who you are. And in the middle of it, you're doing this thing that's literally spanning through a lot of really formative years. So I think the experience of it and the memories that came from that, and just the silliness and the goofiness of being awake way too long, trying to get the shot at 4:00 in the morning, and pulling all-nighters and everything. Like those are memories that'll last forever. And I think that's the coolest thing, is looking back on it with that kind of fondness.
I think for me, it was just, I got to make something. And although it wasn't what I wanted to make, I still had a good time doing it, and some of the best memories. And I got to make something with my friends. And, you don't normally get to do something like that. A lot of people, when we were younger in high school, a lot of people that we would run into would be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it was just talk. And, I've had this knack over the years of when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And it might not be what I originally wanted to do, and it might not even be great, but it usually gets done. And I think having a crew that deals with my crazy, psychotic, bipolar ass while making these things means the world to me. And like I said, we have stories. I know Josh and Adam and Ben have stories to tell about me for the rest of my life. When I'm dead, they're going to be like, man, remember that crazy guy Will who threw blood on us in the middle of 3 o'clock in the morning?
3 o'clock in the morning?
New York City! But no, I had a blast doing this movie. And again, like I said, we were kids and we were trying to make something. And I'm proud of that endeavor. Now, if I could, what are some of your favorite memories from the movie, Josh?
Oh, man, that's really put me on the spot there. I think I had a good time shooting the stuff we did down in Bethany Bay. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Those were some really fun times. All the, like the walk and talks we were doing and the stuff with Tony.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
The 3D stuff.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for sure. But also like the scenes we did, like I love when I have the fog machine and then it cuts and all of a sudden I'm not there anymore.
That's
like
Ben's idea.
Yeah, it's great. It's one of my favorite things that we shot, and the stuff we did out here, like of me driving, like that
to that music that John Stoffer did.
Oh my God, that was such a funny idea. Oh yeah. That was it. And I was in my little Chevy Cavalier, and we're just sitting in one spot, and I have the car on, and you hear the click of the engine and everything, and I'm just there turning it, looking around like I'm driving.
Well, I remember when we got that music, because the music makes that like funny.
Oh,
and I got
100%.
7 or 8 tracks from John Stoffer, and they all sounded like something you would hear off a Super Metroid.
Yeah, it was pretty...
and Ben, which this happened a lot, was like, yeah, but you could put that during every driving scene. And we both looked at each other. We would have this saying when we were editing, and Josh, you did this too, where we would just kind of go, could be funny as shit. So we did it, and then it's the same thing with the screaming. Was that you, Ben, or was that you?
I don't remember.
It wasn't me, because I came in and I saw a cut of that, and I fell on the floor laughing.
I think it was you, Ben, because we were looking, you were saying, there's too much wind sound effect, you can't hear anything. Try to find like an atmosphere that matches. And I just clicked on, I opened up my sound effects library, and I clicked on this fucking sound effect. Oh my God. And all we heard was like a dog growling, and Ben's like, what the hell is that? And then you heard this guy go, ah!
Yeah.
And it's like a 2 or 3 minute long sound effect clip. And great. I looked at Ben, and I had, Josh knows this, I have this shit-eating grin I do.
Yeah.
You know what I...
Yeah.
Josh, do it. So I was kind of like... and Ben looks at me, and Ben's like trying to like to hold back laughter, and I'm like, could be funny as shit. So now almost every time it's dark, you hear a guy getting attacked by a dog.
Another one of my favorites.
And it will be in the sequel.
Chef's kiss.
I think my 2 favorite memories are just, like I said, digging the holes in the in the woods. That was just hilarious to me. And the second favorite is that during Josh's death, he throws a knife at Haywood, and Haywood catches it and throws it back. Will actually threw that knife at me, and I really caught it. It was dulled down, but he really did throw that knife at me.
No, we wouldn't do that today.
No.
That scared the hell out of me.
But it was completely dull. We had, well, I did treat it like a weapons expert, if you think about it, because I was like, no, I did.
Okay.
No, remember I said this is the one with the ridges. This is the real one.
That's true.
That's the one that Josh pulls out, and then I was like, this is the dulled down one that gets thrown, and it was dull. And then remember we had the nub that stuck out of your shirt.
Oh yeah, and it went into that foam.
That foam,
that foam brick.
We couldn't get it to stick in you at all, and you can kind of
stabbing him. It wouldn't stick in.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell, Josh? What the?
Wouldn't do it.
I think my favorite memory was probably God, because you're so many. It was one was when I took the car to the body shop and they found the dead body in the trunk.
Yeah, you probably should have taken that out first.
I couldn't. The tire shot off my car, and and it went. Yeah, I was driving. Somebody loosened the lug nuts on my tire. I guess because I was in Pittsburgh and I moved the fucking chair out of the way. It's a thing. And somebody loosened so I didn't know what the rattling was, and then all of a sudden I was going like 65 mile per hour and the tire shot off. So I got towed to a tow shop, or a truck, a repair shop, and I had a dead body from the movie Allen in there. I think we used it for a scene in Macabre Medicine, but it was cut. And they were going to call the cops, and they're like, wait a minute, this thing's plastic. So, that was a thing. But I also enjoy, I have to say this. One of the most unsung heroes of this whole movie, and I hope you guys agree with me, was Matt Oken. Because Matt does not get enough credit, but the guy always was there to help me shoot. Whenever we needed to throw him in a scene, he was there. When my cameras died, he gave me his to use. And he tolerated my stupid ass all through college. I remember we went to go see, what was that fucking movie? Where the Wild Things Are.
I didn't see it.
He left and he was like, oh, that was a stupid ass movie. If I wanted to see something like that, I'd just watch you run around the house acting like an idiot for half an hour. It was a joke. No, but he really, I give him some mad props because he tolerated a lot of crap with this movie that he did not have to. But I think he had an interest, and I hope he had some fun with it. So I want to say thank you to Matt Oken. And, some of my best memories were just us hanging out in between the shoots. And I think my favorite thing was trying to make shit work together.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this effect didn't work. Well, let's try this. It was a lot of us thinking on our feet. So that was kind of cool.
Now, before we go, is there any thoughts that you care to add?
Closing thoughts, guys?
I'm just glad that we did this, and I think Macabre Medicine is a lot of fun. And thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's fun to talk about it and reminisce, and it's been a minute. So I appreciate it. And
I just want to say thank you, Mike, for doing this. I had my, my reservations, about doing an interview. But it's been fun, and I really hope to make Macabre Medicine 2. And I want to say, just off subject, congratulations, although this is going to be past, congratulations to friend of the Movie Raid show and movie night, to Michael Bailey Smith, who just got married. Congratulations, my friend.
Oh, congrats.
Who was in the Hills Have Eyes remake and the original Fantastic Four. He played Ben Grimm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. So, congratulations, Michael. Hopefully you're happy. Sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding. I will mail you the toaster.
And there you have it, everybody. That is Will Devokees, Josh, and Ben on this Macabre Medicine special here on the Movie Raid Show.
Woohoo, indeed. All right.
And cut. Bye. No.
Checks in the mail? No.
Yeah, I am getting paid for this, right?
Yeah, about that.